Hi everyone, my name's Pan and welcome to another edition of Bluebird Corner, the Cardiff City fans podcast. Please like and subscribe to the channel to be in with a chance of winning a £250 gift card, courtesy of our sponsors Top Tier Cleaning. We're going to do that draw next Tuesday, the 17th of June. So if you do subscribe before that time, you will be in the draw for that gift card, which you can use at a number of pubs and restaurants in South Wales. We're going to do a show on the 1982-83 season, and the draw will take place during that time. So it's been announced that Brian Barry Murphy's will be coming to Cardiff City. The negotiations with Leicester City are now complete, and he will be released as assistant manager from his role there under Ruud van Nistelrooy. I've been speaking to Richard Pennington, the sports editor of the Manchester Evening News today, and Richard watched every home game, as a journalist, while Brian Barry Murphy was there. So we had an interesting chat this afternoon. I'll share some of those comments with you. So we'll look at the backstory of Murphy in terms of how he started his career, where he's from, how he developed from as a coach to a manager, and look at his record and how we think he's going to fit in as Cardiff City manager. So, Brian Barry Murphy is from Cork in Ireland. His father is a famous hurler and Gaelic footballer. And Brian Barry Murphy was once quoted as saying that him and his dad are the equivalent of Darren and Alex Ferguson. So I don't know anything about hurling in Ireland, but I imagine that his dad must have been an incredible player and well respected if he thought he was in the same kind of ilk as Alex Ferguson. So he went to, as a player, he started his career at Cork City. He made 80-odd appearances as a defensive midfield player. The feedback was he was technically a very good player on the ball, very quick. He then went to Preston in 99, where he signed a 4-year contract. He didn't make many appearances for Preston, 21 in total, and he was loaned out to Hartlepool and Southend, where he'd made 7 or 8 appearances. In 2003, he then signed for Sheffield Wednesday, where he was just there for over a season, made 58 appearances. And then he went to Bury from 2004 to 2010. That was probably one of his most successful times as a player. Played 218 games, scoring 13 goals, before he moved on to Rochdale in 2010 as a player. And he played about 66 games for them. So in total, he made 433 appearances, scoring 17 goals. And as I said, he was a defensive mid, so you wouldn't have expected him to score many more goals, really. He then, in 2014, he became player coach of Rochdale. Now, during the back end of his playing career, Rochdale had their most successful spell since 1970. And as a player coach, they ended up finishing in League One 8th, 10th, 9th, 20th, and 16th in the 5 seasons he was there. And someone of my age in the 50s, I do remember, in the 80s and 90s, I always thought of Rochdale as a 4th division club, really, one of the lower, one of the worst teams in the league. So, that was a pretty successful time for a small club like Rochdale. So after he became player coach, he was assistant to Keith Hill. He then became manager of Rochdale. And the feedback from Richard Pennington was that, Rochdale fans thought quite highly of Brian Barry Murphy because, as a player, he was well regarded. And in terms of developing young players, that was the reason he was brought in. There wasn't any money to spend at Rochdale. There was a few things going on in the back room and the boardroom. But the view of the fans there was that, they did like his kind of style. It was a bit different to, some of the smaller teams in that league. And he brought a freshness, really, to the whole side. Brian Barry Murphy, as I've said, that his massive influence in his life was his dad, who went on to manage Cork. And he said he's taken a lot of things as a manager, what he learned from his dad. So he tended to take a lot of players on loan from places like teams like Manchester City, Gavin Bazuma. That didn't really work out. Santos from Brighton was hit and miss, so Richard Pennington said. and a couple of other players. I think Reece Norrington Davis was there when he was in his younger days. So his remit was to develop players. But, the feedback from Richard Pennington was that in the end, I mean, he had, 2 years there. He signed a 4-year contract. In his first season there, he came in sort of, a little bit into the season. They only won 10 games out of 34, finishing 18th. And in his following full season, they actually only won 11 games of 46, finishing fourth from bottom, and were relegated from League One. So, for a small club like Rochdale, as I said, really going back through the history, normally League Two, or what the equivalent of the old fourth division, was where they mainly were. So League One was probably one of their best times, really. But obviously they were relegated under him as a manager. As I said, his win percentage was 31% in 109 games. So, that's not good at all. And I think, talking to Richard, he said that the fans in the end weren't disappointed when he left. The view was that he was brought in to develop some players. It was perceived as tippy-tappy football at times, more possession-based. And there wasn't really that much disappointment when he decided to resign in sort of 2021 from his position and take over as the Manchester City Elite Development Manager from Maresca. And Maresca obviously has ended up being at Chelsea. And talking to Richard Pennington, he did say that, getting that job is not easy. They've obviously, assessed Brian Barry Murphy as a coach and developing young players. The feedback, they got a lot of feedback from the younger players who worked with him. And the view was that he would be a really good fit for that development role. And I think, that sort of gives you a good insight to how highly rated he is as a coach, working under Pep Guardiola. And, in that time he was there, in the first 2 years, they won the Premier League at that level, elite development level. So, he had some successes. I think Cole Palmer, he was working with at that time. So, the feeling was that as a coach, he's highly regarded, and that he really did bring on some of the younger players with his enthusiasm, his fresh ideas. And as I said, some of the comments made by sort of ex-players has been that, he was highly respected as a coach and ahead of his time, really, in terms of developing players, and had a real understanding of the game. And even, going sort of to Manchester City as elite academy manager, he was able to develop some new coaching techniques, and he admitted himself that he learned quite quickly that he needed to go from a possession-based game, which he did mainly at Rochdale, to a more forward-thinking game about, being progressive and attacking. So he actually has been quoted as saying his philosophy now is about attacking football. And I'm from a Cardiff City point of view as a fan, that's encouraging. He then was given the assistant manager's role at Leicester City in December 24, working with Ruud van Nistelrooy. And even Van Nistelrooy had said that, he was highly regarded as a coach. His ideas, his way of working, his way of developing players, his understanding of the game, his relationship with players. And that's why he was brought in. So, Leicester City felt that he was the right man for that role. And now we're at a stage where obviously he is Cardiff City's manager. So I've talked to a few City fans today to get some different views. Some of the views are disappointment. I think some fans felt that we needed someone who's experienced manager, someone like Nathan Jones. Obviously, I don't know whether we tried to get him. The feeling was that, once we got down to the final three, which Murphy was on, as well as Buckingham and possibly Ramsey, that they had a discussion with Ramsey. He felt that he wanted certain things in place, a director of football, a number of other things. But there was also the issue that I think Ramsey did feel that he'd give it another year playing because he wanted to try and get in the Wales squad for the World Cup next year in USA, Canada, Mexico. So obviously Ramsey is now left to sign a year contract in Mexico. And then obviously we found out, 10 days ago that there were negotiations with Charlton about getting Nathan Jones. And then obviously Charlton announced that they'd extended Jones's contract. So some City fans are telling me that, Barry Murphy is third choice. That may well be true. And that other fans who got a different type of view are saying, we're just glad it's over the line. The view is from some fans is that they're very positive about his coaching ability. He's worked with a lot of very good, promising young players. And I think at Cardiff City, let's be honest, we haven't got any money. We're losing another 10 million going down. There's going to be a few players sold, i.e. possibly Callum Robinson, etc. A few players might go on loan, like Jesper Darland. And we're going to have to bring through some of the younger players. And we've had a few players like Ashford and Bagan and Lawler who look really promising. Capacchio's coming through, been in the Wales squad. So, I think he's excited about working with the younger players. And the view from the board at Cardiff City is, look, we haven't got the money. We need to develop our younger players. And this is the way we're going to go. My own view is slight disappointment in terms of not getting an experienced manager. Delman had already expressed that in statements he's made. And I think, it's going to be a very difficult situation for Brian Barry Murphy because it may well be that he'll go down the Reza route of more attacking football than bullets. But unless we can bring in 4 or 5 players, I honestly, at the moment, don't see us being, competing for those top positions. Let's be honest. There is a step up, obviously, from League One to the Championship, but we're certainly not going to do a Birmingham City. And there's some decent sized clubs in there, and some really good clubs like Stockport County. Bolton will improve. Reading have changed ownership. Bradford City have gone up. So there's some, and I still think Plymouth, really good side, good, fantastic crowd there at home park. They'll be really difficult, and Luton would be expected to bounce straight back as champions. So it's going to be really tough. And I don't want to put a negative on it before he's even started, but Cardiff City fans will be expecting results in this league. It's no good having tippy-tappy football, whatever you want to call it. Or exciting football but losing games. Losing them 4-2, 4-3. That's not what we want. We want winning football. We want to get out of this league. We haven't been in it for over 20 years, and we need to get out of this league. It's not, it's not an easy thing to do, but we want to see results and progression. So he's going to be under pressure fairly quickly. As I said, some fans who've been really positive about it have said that really good backstory, good coach, highly regarded, brings through younger players, probably got good connections as well, Leicester City, Manchester City, and he would be able to maybe entice some younger players to the club. I think that's the route we're going to go down. I'm going to do a pod on, players that retention next week, who we're going to keep, who we're probably going to loan, who we're going to sell, and then how many we're probably going to sign. And I think realistically, we're not going to be spending much money, or if any, for this season. And it's going to be a case of loan signings and bringing in a couple of young, uncut gems, really. And that's his job, really, to develop those players. And he'll have an eye on some of these younger players. Hopefully, there's some decent lads, at the academy of Manchester City, for example, that he may be able to entice, who are not getting opportunities. And that'll be the route we'll probably go down. So yes, I mean, I'm not overwhelmed by this appointment, but I do get behind him straight away. You've got to really back him. Let's see what happens, obviously, in the transfer window over the next few weeks. We'll be doing podcasts on possible signings, and speaking to some editors of other newspapers who will be able to obviously give us an insight into possible signings for Cardiff City in the next few weeks. So please like and subscribe. As I said, we're going to do that draw next Tuesday for that £250 gift card, and we shall see you again very soon.